I'd like to introduce you to a very dear friend of mine for many years now, the chairman and the founder of FSHD Global Research Foundation. Please give a warm welcome to none other than Mr. Bill Moss, AO.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Jamie. Wow, what a beautiful night. Love the pink. Looks great. Welcome to the 2017 Sydney Chocolate Ball. On behalf of the FSHD Global Research Foundation, its directors, our medical research partners, sponsors and staff, I would like to thank you all for attending what will be a truly amazing evening. I'd also like to thank our volunteers and of course all those ambassadors for making tonight possible. Also a special thank you to the team that's been responsible for creating tonight's event. It is these wonderful people, together with all those that donate money, gifts and contribute services, that allow this remarkable medical research foundation to exist. Facioscapulohumeral muscular dystrophy is a terrible name for a terrible disease. Very few people can remember the name and even less can spell it. So we refer to it tonight as FSHD. As Jamie said, it's one of the most common forms of muscular dystrophy, with perhaps 1 million people affected globally. It is perhaps the most common form of dystrophy in adults, but it also affects children from a very young age and quite severely. Simply, it is a progressive muscle wasting disease that has devastating effects on the physical, emotional and social well-being for both the person living with FSHD and their families. It's a disease where a seemingly healthy parent can carry the gene defect and pass it on to their children with disastrous results. Tonight you'll hear about FSHD, the disease. You'll get an opportunity to understand what it is and to share the pain and emotion it brings to sufferers. But firstly, I'd like to just take a few minutes of your time to talk about this foundation and to explain why it exists and why it is unique. In late 2005, I was sitting in a boardroom at number 1 Martin Place on a Monday morning. This was a meeting that we had every Monday. It had just ended and everybody had left the room and I was alone. Why? Simply because I couldn't get up. I'd been attending these meetings for 10 years and had always managed to get up somehow. But on that day, it was different. It had happened to me before on planes and on some of my business trips where I was getting up from low lounges, but never at work where I could lean on a table to support me. You see, that's the way it is with this disease. What you could do one day, you may never do again. Slowly, you lose the use of your body, one piece at a time. That was the point in time that I decided to leave the business world and spend the rest of my life finding a cure for this disease. A disease that was relatively unknown. A disease where no research had been undertaken in Australia and very little globally. A lot of research and self-education took me about 18 months to carry this out. I then established the FSHD Global Research Foundation. Since its establishment, we have achieved a lot. We have funded in excess of $8.6 million on 42 medical research projects in 9 countries. We've engaged with the best scientists globally and encouraged Australian scientists to collaborate with them. We've educated the global community and the medical specialists about FSHD. We've even tried to educate the Australian government. We've funded research that has changed the medical landscape for this disease, including the world's first FSHD embryonic stem cell line. We've funded research to improve the understanding of the genetic basis of FSHD. We've funded research to stop the toxic protein you'll hear a bit about tonight called DUX4, which is responsible for destroying muscles in FSHD patients. And we are funding research that will change the way this disease is diagnosed and treated. In this regard, we recently announced the funding of a research grant to the Garvan Institute and Concord Hospital to develop an FSHD whole genome sequencing, which will be used to diagnose all forms of the disease and facilitate novel disease gene identification. This is a world first. In recent years, we've been instrumental in establishing a biotech company in the Netherlands. This company has now found over 300 compounds that reduce the levels of DUX4 in human FSHD tissue. I'm pleased to say that I'm a founding director of this company, which is owned by people living with FSHD and global FSHD foundations like ours. It is the first of its kind in the world where people who establish, invest and manage a biotech company do so to find a cure for a disease that they carry. It's quite remarkable. This venture is also an ethical investment that allocates 50% of all future profits to subsidise the future costs of treatment for FSHD patients. But we've achieved more than this. We created a new model for charity transparency. Since our establishment, 100% of all tax-deductible donations that we receive have funded medical research. Not 60%, not 70%, 100%. When you make a donation, you are given a donor number. You can then download from the internet an app, or you can visit our website and you can see which medical research project that number applies to. You can follow the progress of that research project. This is totally transparent and we've won numerous awards for this innovation. But we've achieved more than this. Our researchers have published over 40 scientific papers in respected global journals. We've worked with the USA and the Netherlands to create a global alliance of government and non-government agencies that fund research for FSHD. Over the past decade, we have been the largest funder of FSHD medical research in the world, behind the US government. By comparison, the Australian government has refused to contribute $1 to FSHD research. The current Health Minister, Greg Hunt, not only refused to contribute $1 million towards establishing a Centre of Excellence for FSHD in Western Sydney, he even spelled our name wrong in his reply. You'll hear more about our scientific achievements tonight. You'll also hear about our progress towards therapeutic trials and bringing the diagnosis of this disease in Australia up to world's best practice, which sadly it is not. Our strategy is to ensure Australians are able to participate in future clinical trials, and this starts with correct diagnosis and patient registries. Tonight you will also hear from our patron, Justin Reid, who is here tonight with his 5 carers. Where are you, Justin? You there somewhere? Yeah, good to see you. Those of you that were here last year will remember Justin's story of his fight and passion to live. He was in hospital for 11 months after he lost the ability to swallow. He no longer eats, but he tells me he can still consume tequila through the peg in his stomach. So have a good night, Justin. We're looking forward to you. Justin, you are an inspiration. You see, Justin and I met on many occasions for many years. We used to share a coffee and talk about FSHD. Now, sharing a coffee with someone we all take for granted, it's a normal part of our life. But when you share a coffee with someone with FSHD, you usually end up talking about hope or sadness. Often you talk about the worth of living and the pain and effort required to exist. You see, I've had many of these coffees. In conclusion, FSHD research is FSHD research in Australia relies solely on this foundation. This foundation relies solely on community support to fund global medical research. Thank you for your support tonight, which will help us better understand this complex and devastating disease and bring hope to those affected by FSHD. Finally, before I go, I'd like to give one very special thanks to two great Australians, Luke Mangan and Jamie Dewey. For 8 years they've supported this foundation and this event with their time, their energy, their money and their heart. They give up their time to make this a world-class event, which it is. Thank you everyone, and enjoy the night.